Today I'm going to give the 85 Caprice Classic a start up here. Gonna start it up. Just a cold start. Oh wait, we probably got a bad battery connection here. Hold on a second. Hang on. Hang on. Ooh! Octavio blew my engine! Actually, I think Octavio stole my engine. That greasy. You know what? You told me you love me, but you lie. You liar! Actually, that's some wicked ass. Anyway, the 85 Chevy Caprice has no engine. Get Octavio to sit there on the cross member and tell him to turn that torque converter. See how far we can go with it. Anyways, I'm acting like an idiot. So, we tore the engine out of this car. It is now engineless, and it sits really nice and high on the front end because it has no engine to weigh it down. So, you could probably get maybe 30 miles to a gallon. If you had an engine to push it, which I do. There's an engine to push it. It's called my truck. And a chain. The only way to move this thing around now. Power steering works really good. With no engine weighing the front end down, you can actually turn this thing pretty easy. That and it's on snow too, so it's like effortless. Anyway. Big mess. For anybody that's ever done something like this, big mess. I decided to leave the front clip intact, and what I went ahead and done is I disconnected the transmission from the engine and separated them two, and left the transmission attached with the car. And who wants money now? God almighty, it's like people constantly bugging me. Don't buy an iPhone, people, okay? Because people find your number and then they just bother you. That's why I live in the woods. I live in the woods for one reason, so people don't bother me. But now we got cell phones everywhere nowadays and cell phone towers, so here she be. Alright, so this is the old tired 305. I really don't know what to do. I'm thinking investing the $1,500 and just buy a 350 GM crate, which is more practical. The thing is that this thing needs a camshaft. It needs a new valve train put in. So it's like, well, if you've already gone to that extent by tearing the engine out of the vehicle, well, you might as well just go ahead and do a complete teardown. Because let's face it, this engine does have 280,000 clicks on it. She's turned around a lot. But the compression is good, the piston rings are indicating that the piston rings are fine, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff's good. It's just typical GM with their camshafts, the lobes around wore off. So, now with the engine actually out of the vehicle, so now I have a whole bunch of options that I must try and consider. Two options. One option is to rebuild the engine, or at least rebuild the valve train. Second option is to just replace the engine. My problem with that is that I like matching numbers. This engine came with this car. That's the original engine that was dropped into this car here back in 1985 when it came off the assembly line. If I take this engine and decide I'm not going to put it in that car, I'm going to put it in a different engine, it doesn't hurt the value of the vehicle any. But to somebody like me where matching numbers and matching everything means something, it's not the same. So that's my problem right now that I'm trying to decipher, is that what I should do. Practicality is the big thing. The most practical, economic way of doing things right now would be just to go out and buy a new engine. You know, it would be shipped to my door. I'd use this shop crane here, and I'd drop it in the car. It took me and another fellow 3.5 hours to haul that engine out of that car. We wheeled this car in here at around 4 o'clock in the evening, and by 8:30 it was out. You know what I mean? Like, it was out. We were having a few beers, and we were actually standing here in the garage looking at it. So, a couple variables, right? Like, it's just a few things that I'm thinking about. Like, it's just, you know, it is a 305. You know, a lot of people, you know, the 305 means nothing to them. But to me, it was the engine, the original engine that came with the vehicle. Okay? So, you know, it's all original. You know? It's nice to see the flywheel's in good shape, because I accidentally cranked the starter one time when the engine was actually running, and the choke was on, and she went, oh yeah. I thought I took off a few teeth out of the starter too. But no, actually everything's good. So at least we know cast iron can take a lot of abuse, not like aluminum. And cast iron too, you know, when you overheat one of these small block Chevs, you know, you just let her cool down, dump some coolant in the rad, and away you go. You know, not like aluminum. I know with that Dodge, if I overheat that, I'm screwed for life. It'll be, you know, well, if I overheat that engine, it'll be that engine that'll be sitting on this engine hoist right now. So, anyway, a whole bunch of variables to consider, but that's what has happened with the 85. It has been torn down. Engine has been removed from the vehicle. So, like I say, I got a big mess. Oh yeah, the mess. Got gravel and some kitty litter and everything else. Trying to, like, people often wonder, you know, when you're hauling an engine out, if the transmission kind of goes on an angle a bit, which it will, even though the transmission mount is still connected, it's going to sag a bit. Some people think that, you know, it's not going to leak anything. Oh yeah, it's going to leak. There's going to be transmission fluid coming out of everything. Like, I mean, it came out of the torque converter, it came out of the it came out of the tranny cooler lines, it came out of the rear seal where the drive shaft lines up. Like, it was everywhere. You couldn't stop it. But engine coolant too, like, it's a messy job. Anybody that's thinking about doing it, you might want to go down to the liquor store first. Anyway, so that's basically what we'll leave it as a November update on this vehicle. It is going to be parked for now. Until I get all the parts required, and I'm going to think about what I'm going to do. Like, this car isn't operated in the winter anyway, so it's just going to be stored probably over there, and the hood will be placed back on it just to keep everything, you know, snow and everything out of it. I don't want the, you know, the torque converter all plugged with snow and crap, like the exhaust system too. So but like I say, like, it's very simple. Fuel pump was left intact. You know, you just drop that stuff, and your power steering too. Like, all that stuff stays with the car. You know, and you just add that stuff last. But anyway, like I say, 3.5 hours to do it. If anybody's ever done it before, it's not that major of a, you know, it is more work if you decide to lift the transmission and the engine out. It's an assembly. It's, you know, you don't have to crawl under the car as much, but the problem is you have to take the drive shaft out, and you would have to take the front clip out, and that just leaves, well, it's more work that way, but, you know, it can't be done that way. You know, there's no getting around the end game. It's kind of a pain no matter how you